Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Orange Butterfly Effect. This week, I am here with marketing maven, Matt Schiering. Matt, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Good to be
I
with you.
have,
Hi, Michelle.
hi, I have so many words to describe you. Are you ready to hear
I
them?
like marketing Maven. That's a great start. I might have to put that on my business card.
I started there. I was really trying to think. I was going to say marketing guru, but then Maven just felt like it really pulled together some experiences. The second word I was going to use to describe you is entertainer. And I only met you in person once before, but that was my first impression of you is you are just such an
Really?
entertainer. Do you get that a lot?
I get it a bit. I do a fair amount of entertaining. I've actually brought improv into the classroom for a number of my students. I did some
Yeah.
performance theater back in my early 30s when I was living in Philadelphia or just outside of Philadelphia. And I've been a musician for most of my life, and I currently play in a cover band. So I guess between standing in front of students, doing a little bit of improv theater, and playing music, I guess that counts as entertaining.
I think you checked all the boxes. So those are my first two descriptors. Marketing maven, entertainer. More formally, you served as a CMO. You've worked in corporate America, Johnson and Johnson. You're a professor. You're a consultant. You're a veteran. You're an author. I just saw. Maybe you're a two-time author or three-time author, but I just saw yesterday that you published a new book. So
I
congratulations
did
to you.
literally yesterday. Thank you so much. Maybe we'll get to talk about it in a bit.
I hope so. I do not have Friday evening plans. We're recording this on a Friday. And I'm
Okay.
in the phase of writing my dissertation, lots of things going on. So this evening I just wanted to relax. And then I saw your book. I read an article that you posted on LinkedIn. In my evening, I have never seen Princess Bride, but because of you, I'm that's going to be my evening watch.
You are? I am so excited that you've been inspired to watch what's literally one of my three favorite movies of all time.
I know, I can't wait. And of course I'll get your book, but I have to watch the movie first, I feel, right?
Yes. Yeah, it would certainly help. It would give the book its context.
Yes. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to stop talking now, though, turn it over to you and say, what did I miss in my description?
Gosh, you haven't missed much. I'm the oldest of six kids. I grew up in the lower Hudson Valley, which is about 30 miles north of New York City,
Okay.
for those who know where New York City is on the map. Spent a good deal of my life here, off to college, also in more upstate New York. Uh, I served in the military, so you did mention
Yep.
veteran. After that, I worked in market research. I worked in more classic consumer packaged goods marketing for companies like J&J and then Irving. I moved over to the B2B side of marketing. I worked for a large healthcare company called Contech. I
Yep.
ran the food service division of another company called PDI. And then a little over 4 years ago, after 25 years in corporate, I said, you know what? I'm ready to give back.
Yeah.
You and I chatted once. I call it sort of returning the favors that I've received, the gifts that I've gotten in my own life to sort of like give it back to that next generation. And so I've been the last 4 odd years now, an assistant professor of marketing at Dominican University, New York.
So tell me, what was your favorite part in corporate America over those 25 years? If you could
Oh
pick,
gosh.
I know it's a big loaded question. And then my second, just so you have time to think, my follow up's going to be what's your favorite part about being in higher education now? And then I want to talk about what's different or the same.
Okay. So I would have so the I'm just going to give you the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah.
And I would say it was doing the consumer research aspect of my days in marketing, and specifically CPG, consumer packaged goods marketing, was my favorite part. Going to focus groups, sharing new package designs or promotional variations, or just eliciting feedback on product naming conventions that we were working on with our target consumer. I loved that. I loved being behind the glass, sending notes in to the focus group moderator, getting that real time feedback.
Yeah.
I've always held that marketing's primary role is to serve as the company's voice of the consumer, voice of the customer. And it's the best way to capture that voice is to do that live research. So when I think about some of my fondest memories, some of my most productive moments, definitely it's sitting in those focus groups, writing down notes and then brainstorming after, like, what did you think of that? How do we interpret that feedback that we just received?
Yeah,
And
that
then
I'm sure that's super energizing for a creative mind to have that instant feedback.
yeah, turning research into insights and then insights into innovation or
Ooh, love
insights
it.
into action, to me, that's everything for the wannabe marketer. Um, you asked what's my favorite part about higher education, and I think it's
Yeah.
sharing what I just shared with you with our students.
I love that. Yes, because that's like almost insights into action again. You're giving your insights from industry to them in a classroom setting, and then they're acting on behalf of whatever's next in their world.
Right. So I'm a professor in our DBIL, Division of Business Innovation and Leadership. So regardless of student major, they have to take me for the intro to marketing class. So some of the students who choose business as a major and just business management as an overarching major, they only get me one time. So
Hmm.
if you're in my intro to marketing class, you're going to learn about consumer insights. You're going to learn about the role that marketing plays in an organization. And if I can convince two or three of those students that, a marketing track is what's right for them, then I've done my job. Which isn't to say that the others don't walk away with a sense of what marketing adds in terms of value. But
Sure.
if I'm being honest, I'm always on the lookout to turn a few management majors into marketing majors.
Oh, of course. Yes, I'm in the world of entrepreneurship and management. So, similarly, when I have access to that first group of students, there are some that you could just tell that they're ready to take on that angle for their future career. So, it's so great that you get to capture them in that moment and inspire.
Well, a lot of students, I think, they come in with a preconceived notion as to what marketing is, right? They spend
Yeah,
so much time on their phones, right? I mean, these small screens, and they're scrolling and scrolling, and they don't even realize it. But the average Gen Z today sees 7,000 promotional ads over the course of a single day on their phone. I know, it's
that
wild,
hurts.
7,000.
That hurts
It
me
does
to
hurt. I
hear.
mean, the average, they're spending between 8 and 10 hours on their phones, so it's not as surprising when you put it in that context. But what that yields is that they think that marketing equals promotion, right? You're
Mm.
the ones who are wasting my time, perhaps, with the things that I can't wait to scroll past. So it's kind of my job to convince them that marketing is a whole lot more than just an ad you might scroll by on Instagram.
Sure. And I know I'm going to talk to you about the before now. So, you
Okay.
thank you so much for your service, number 1, as a veteran. It's my understanding that you were in, was it ROTC that led you then into the
I was a
army?
ROTC as an undergraduate. That's right. So I graduated with a diploma and a commission as a second lieutenant in the Army.
Okay, so after that experience, how did Matt get from there to working in corporate America and being a CMO? Did Matt always want to be in marketing, or what did you want to be? Tell me more.
So I was a hospitality major as an undergrad. I went to the Cornell Hotel School.
Oh,
And I
cool.
really wanted to work. Yeah, I wanted to work in the hotel business. I'd worked in a restaurant most of my high school life, and I really loved that customer service.
Yeah,
I'm always been a foodie, and so I thought, yeah, hotels, restaurants, that's for me. Couldn't afford it without the ROTC scholarship, and then I graduated with that commission and a commitment to give 4 years of my life back to Uncle Sam in the military. So I kind of lagged my own peers by that 4 year mark. They were already,
yeah.
starting around the track, so to speak. What I did was I got my MBA in the evenings
Mm,
while I was serving in the military. And I had a really wonderful market research experience when I was doing it. The university was interested in expanding housing. I got my MBA at UT El Paso, or UTEP,
okay,
as it's commonly referred. Uh, and they were doing a research project on whether the university and the surrounding community could sustain incremental on campus housing. There are a lot of commuters to the school, a lot of
okay.
first generation students who go to UTEP. And that research project, that experience convinced me that this is what I really want to do. I want to do something that allows me to interface with customers to gather insights, turn those insights into recommendations. And the project team that I was on had that project actually selected for presentation to the university president. Now, they wouldn't actually build that housing for another 7 or 8 years, but it was
Mm-hmm.
just being involved in the project itself that really got me energized and motivated for what I wanted to do next. And so I'm dating myself here, Michelle. But in 1994, when my commitment to the military was over, the
Mm-hmm.
most common way to find jobs was to purchase Sunday newspapers, go to the classified section, circle the things that you were interested in, and start writing letters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Literally just sort of like you call it cold calling, but in an envelope. And I must have mailed literally 100 applications all across the country for jobs in marketing, in market research, in consumer promotions. And I got a few hits. One hit specifically was doing pharmaceutical market research, which is basically ad testing for a small boutique consulting firm in Princeton, New Jersey, which was a
Okay.
couple of hours from where I grew up. So it was close to home, but it wasn't right in my backyard. That was very appealing. So I set my sights on that role, interviewed, and got it. And that's really kind of how my post-military marketing life started. It started in market research. I was testing ads, I was writing surveys, I was behind the glass doing focus groups for clients like Pfizer and Wyeth.
Very
It was
cool.
really exciting, a really exciting time for me.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I did not have that background. So it's all connecting and clicking. And now we're going to talk more about alignment. And it's very clear that you are living a life of alignment. So I want to read something. This is from your LinkedIn profile. You describe
Okay.
yourself as I'm a 0 and a 1. I am not one thing or another. I am both. So tell me what that means. Number one,
Okay.
to you.
Uh,
What does that mean to you?
yeah, sure. What it means to me is that I can't be defined by just one aspect of my own personality. And I think that's not just true for me. I think that's true for most everyone. Nobody is just one thing. I just wanted to make that clear, like in my headline, that I'm not just a market researcher or I'm not even just a marketer. And specifically when it comes to marketing, I get asked this all the time is what are the ideal attributes or traits of somebody who can be successful in that space? And my most common answer is you have to be both analytical and creative. So
Mm-hmm.
my whole notion of I'm a 0 and a 1 is a little bit of a nod to that premise because you have to be well balanced. You have to be well rounded, specifically in marketing, but I know that that's also the case in any number of other roles, right? That
Of
you
course.
have to be balanced, well-rounded, a complete soul, if you will. And that's what I'm trying to communicate with that line.
I love that line. And that really feeds into the theme of our conversation today, which is developing a personal brand. So that's my next
Mm.
question for you. As a marketing maven, what is a personal brand to you? How would you define that thing?
It might be fortuitous that I just gave my branding lesson to the intro to marketing class yesterday.
I thought you were going to say
So
today, but you perfect.
we just had this no, right? Today would have been even better, right? But it's less than 24 hours ago. It's one of my favorite classes across the semester because in that class, I actually conclude by asking my students that very question. What's your personal brand? The simplest way that I like to express it is your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. What are the
Powerful.
attributes? What are the personality traits? How are you described by people? Do they use words like funny, smart, kind, loyal, snarky, sarcastic? You know, the list goes on. I mean, we could sit here the rest of the afternoon and just talk about adjectives. But I ask them in that moment, I'm like, write down the 3 to 4 adjectives you'd like to know that people are using to describe you when you're not around.
And
And I don't
how
have
would
them share them. I say that's for you, right? I said, and
yeah,
then ask yourself, are you living that aspect of your personal brand? Is that how you're showing up when you're with other people? Said, because at the end of the day, we all have choices to make. We have limited time, we have, limited resources. Who we choose to spend our time with, that's everything. And
it
so
is.
are you fulfilling your own sort of roadmap of who you want to be, how you want to be perceived when you're with other people for that limited time? And it's like intentionally a bit of a head scratcher, but I think it works no matter who you are. And at any age, ask yourself, how do you want people to perceive you and speak of you when you're not in the room?
And that is such a loaded question. Do you ever have a student say that they don't know what someone would say about them if they were in the room? Or maybe they have a fear that it wouldn't be so positive. How do you handle those types of situations?
I've had a couple of students. It's not so much that they don't know the answer. It's really the students who approach me after this lesson tend to say, I'm concerned that the way I want to be perceived isn't the way I'm always perceived. Right.
Yeah.
And actually, I get this a lot from our athletes. Oh, they see me as a jock. They see me as somebody who's just really good at sports. I'm a gym bro, right? I'm a muscle head, and I'm so much more than that. Professor, what can I do? What should I do in order to change that perception of me? Um, and then we usually end up having sort of a deeper dive. What they're really asking is it possible to change, right? Because people are really afraid to show up differently. They're afraid that that might be alienating. Well, you know what? I may as well go with the flow. They see me as a gym bro, or they see me as someone who's reserved and introvert, never has much to say. And if suddenly I start piping up and speaking my mind, that might be too like shocking or surprising to people, and maybe that will put them off. And my first counsel is you've got to be authentic to yourself. Don't
Yeah.
portray yourself as something that you don't think is true about you because you're trying to satisfy other people. I mean, true friends, if that's in fact what you're looking to build here, will accept you for who you want to be, not who you're pretending to be. And most of us aren't good fakers anyway. So, sort of encouraging them to not be so fearful and, coming up with some tactics or strategies to bring that forth slowly but authentically is usually where the conversation leads.
Yeah, I think authenticity is extremely vulnerable. And in preparation for this conversation, it just so happened that Mel Robbins put out a podcast maybe 2 weeks ago where
Mm,
she had an expert. His name is Dr. Rose, and he was referencing all of this research that when we feel like we belong to a group or have a similar opinion as someone else, there was this study that he referenced. It was a hot or not game. As simple as that.
mm,
So they showed people and had someone rate level of attractiveness. And then afterwards,
okay.
they showed what a score that would have been what other people would have rated that person. And then when they took the assessment again, they rated the person closer to what they thought the majority was rating that person, even if they had a different rating to begin. And when they did that, their brain lit up like, oh, yes, you get that rush that you
Yeah.
feel like you made a choice that the group made. So I
Isn't that
share that to
interesting?
say, when I think about developing my personal brand and my authentic self, I feel like sometimes I'm going against the grain, or I may make a choice that does not fit within a group of people. How do you align with your authentic self if it feels like you're being different?
Well, different isn't bad. Um,
D-
and
right.
so I find myself actually saying those 3 words all the time. You know, the way it manifests, the way students will express that to me specifically is not so much using the word different. They'll say, I feel like an outsider. I feel like sometimes I'm watching myself, like in a
Mm,
given moment, right? I don't feel like I fit in or I belong, right? So it doesn't necessarily present as I'm different, but I think that's probably where what they're driving toward. And I say it's really easy to get sort of locked in your own head here. And my typical encouragement is, and you tell me if you agree with this, Michelle, because it reminds me of how hard it is to give ourselves our own nickname, right? You can't usually pull that off. Hey, guess what? I want everybody to start calling me Sparky. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
everybody sort of looks at you funny, like,
Like,
what?
mhm.
No, we'll decide what your nickname should be. I said, that's kind of how branding works, right? Like
Wow.
those
Yeah.
around you will kind of make that decision based on how you're showing up. I said, so what I'd recommend is try to get a little bit outside your own head. Try to be curious. Try to start this process of revealing who you are by asking good questions of other people, taking an interest in others, delving into being a really good listener when they answer, because who, especially at that age, doesn't want to feel heard, feel
Yeah.
seen, feel listened to? I said, that's how you're going to start to show up for other people. When they start to feel that you're taking a genuine interest in them, please believe me when I say that they will begin to take a deeper interest in you, and then you'll get to answer similar questions. Now, if you surrounded yourself with people who don't respond in kind, that all they do is sort of suck that light and that energy from you, they're happy to hear your questions, but they never reciprocate, then you have a little bit of a decision to make, because another aspect of our brand, of course, is the company that we choose to keep. And that
Right.
is, in fact, a choice that we make. Said, but don't begin by trying to thrust what you want to be on other people. Start by asking them about who they are and take it from there.
Wow, that's a really interesting approach that it's almost like market research in a way when you frame it
I
like
can't
that.
help it. It's
The
100%.
ultimate Q&A, right?
Yeah.
Have you had students go through that process and come back to you and share their results? Have you ever had that interaction where someone says, "Hey, I went out and I did this thing and now I feel more aligned with my personal brand?"
Yes. So I had specifically actually a student who was on the tennis team a number of years ago who just, and at our school, just for better or for worse, a lot of times the cliques can form around team sports, right?
Mhm.
So the women's lacrosse team hangs out mostly with other members of the women's lacrosse team. The men's soccer team, the guys that they dress and shower and play and eat with and travel with, that's their folks,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
So to a degree, the university's kind of made that choice for them, but they do have this common interest. This particular student was on the women's tennis team, and she just felt like she wasn't a fit with the rest of the team. A contributing factor might have been that she was a sophomore transfer, right? So she wasn't there from year one. She
Yeah.
just felt like she was being a little bit boxed out. And so I gave her that similar advice about, well, talk, forming study groups, or I give group projects, choose people that you know from class that you feel that you might be able to match wits with academically. And it took her the better part of the entire sophomore year, but I got an email from her that summer in between sophomore and junior year saying, I found my group. And I almost got like really emotional about it, like remembering it. Like I was really touched by that. I was like so
Yeah.
happy for her. She included this picture of herself at a local beach with two or three other young college students from our school, none of whom were athletes actually. So I felt so happy for her. Um,
Yeah.
Not so much that she had taken my advice, but that she had taken this leap, right? To sort of like look outside of herself to try to find people who had common interest that wasn't based on the sport that she was recruited to play. And that while it took the better part of a year, it worked out for her. And so she's graduated since, actually. This was a couple years ago that this happened. And she's thriving in a social media role um, for a company in Manhattan. And
Awesome.
it's really, yeah, it really, it's wonderful. I mean, to see it play out like that.
I thought you might have a success story because the way again, the way that you're planting the seeds specifically, I can really see students taking advantage of that, either formally or informally. I know it takes a lot of work, but the fact that they're given the okay to start to have those conversations and the push, I think that makes a big difference for students or for anyone when you say, "Why don't you just try this thing? Just try."
Yeah, I'd like to think that that's so. Anyway, we do tend to remember the ones that really do work out, right? I mean, there are other students, for better or for worse, that it doesn't work out for them and they actually leave the school, right? They like see if they can find their people somewhere else.
Of
And I
course.
respect that. That's a really courageous decision to make in itself, right? I mean, the whole like transfer portal for athletes has, amped up in recent years. So maybe it's become a little bit easier to sort of take that exit.
Yeah.
Um, but I still think that requires courage to move on from one place, and start anew somewhere else. But yeah, when we get those wins, Michelle, it can really be moving.
It can be. And talk to me. So you mentioned packaging. And when I think about a personal brand, I think we can apply that same model. We're almost a package in our own way, right? So when you're having this
Yeah.
conversation with students, or if someone's listening right now and thinking of themselves as a brand, is our package how we present outwardly? Or how would you apply that to personal branding? Is it what we wear, what the glasses that I choose to put on? I know that's part of it, but can you kind of debunk or, you know, talk to me about how to compose that?
Sure, sure. I mean, really, if you think about it, there are two aspects to a brand, right? Think about something that you purchase off the shelf, right? Even like a common household item like toothpaste, right?
Mhm.
We talk about the aspects of brand identity, right? Or the visual aspects of the brand itself. So we're talking about, sure, the outer packaging, the colors that are used, the letter forms, or somebody might use the word font, right? Logo type. And then we talk about the iconography, right? How do we recognize that brand if the name isn't even present, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Coca-Cola doesn't have an icon unless you sort of count that stripe, but we certainly recognize the hourglass shape of the bottle, the proprietary Coca-Cola font, and I think it's Red 103 in the Pantone book that they use, which they can't own, but which they've been using for 100 years. So
Yeah.
those three elements kind of come together. And again, whether it's Coca-Cola or Crest or Alberto VO5, there are certain aspects of the visual identification of that brand. Students aren't that different. I mean, some wear Crocs, some wear Nike, some wear flip-flops, some wear Uggs, right? Um, Sweatpants, hoodie. I sometimes feel like that's kind of the uniform, right?
Yep. I see a lot of that. Mhm.
Track pants, hoodie, um, and Crocs is like very typical, and that's okay, right? Um, we didn't have those things when I was going through college. It was like it was jeans, you know, what was it say high leather uppers, like Nike basketball sneakers
Yeah.
was kind of all the rage, right? And then, like a polo shirt, right? That was casual. Maybe your fraternity letters on a sweatshirt if you did that kind of thing. Um, and then like the way you wear your hair or like with or without makeup, those kinds of things, the glasses, are you going Warby Parker or, what's that aspect of your brand? And people will notice like you change something, you change your hairstyle, you have a presentation and the professor made you get dressed up. People take note, right?
Yeah.
Because it's something a little bit different. But that's only the physical manifestation. The other part of this, of course, is what we call the brand equity. And the brand equity is based almost entirely on the experience of being in your company, right? And so you can almost throw out everything else about appearance and looks, etc., and just boil it all down to how does it make people feel when they're in your company and then later when they're not? Do they miss you? What is it about being in your company that they crave, right? And now we're back to that notion of what are they saying or thinking about you when you're not around? And what do you want that to look and sound like? So I talked to them about a little bit about their visual identity. and that it's okay. That's going to change over the course of time. You're going to leave college, you're going to get a job, you're going to want to be in a relationship, you'll dress accordingly, right?
Mm-hmm.
I said, but the way that you choose to show up, the way that you behave, the way that you interact with other people, that's your customer service element. That's the experience of you, right?
Yeah.
Is it a dialogue when people are with you? Are you asking questions and answering theirs? Because monologues are, that went out 30, 40 years ago with regular brands. So we ask a brand a question on Instagram or Twitter.
Yep, they're
We
coming
expect a
right back.
reply.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in a way that we didn't 30 or 40 years ago. I care. You want me to care about you? Show me that you care about me. And I think it's even more true with people. So, how are you showing up for other people? How are you letting them know that they're important to you? That's your brand equity right there.
And what about reputation? When you talk about a brand responding quickly, all of those things that allow us to then develop what that reputation is. How does that play a role in this conversation,
Yeah.
our personal brand reputation?
So the word I tend to use actually is loyalty or advocacy, right?
Okay.
So I usually frame that up in terms of the buyer journey, right? Which awareness, consideration, purchase, and then that last step, loyalty or advocacy, right?
Mhm.
And so I would frame it up with regard to brands, and then I come right back to who you are as a person, right? How do you show up that makes people aware of who you even are in the first place, right? Because people have choices, you evolve from awareness into their consideration set, right? And
Yep.
maybe your proximity to them, being on the same team, makes that consideration that much easier. And then sort of purchase or decision, as we sometimes call it, that's easy too. You're right here. You're the room next door to mine. But that last piece, that loyalty piece, when you're not in season, when you're not seeing each other every single day,
So much
that
harder.
advocacy piece, yeah, it's you have to work at that part. Advocacy is when we choose to talk about the attributes of a brand to somebody else. We become ambassadors on that person's behalf. So, who's ready to introduce you to their broader circle of friends because they want to invite you there? What are you doing to help promote advocacy, right, of your own brand amongst the group that you want to be a part of, right? We're right back to brand reputation then, right? We're right back to brand equity. Sometimes people use a fancy word, they'll call it brand resonance, right? How do you
Yeah.
resonate with other people when you're not in their physical company, right?
Yeah.
I guess the kids today use the term vibe, right? Are you vibing even when you're not present, right? And that speaks to that advocacy, that speaks to that experience that ensures a level of advocacy when you're not there.
So in corporate America, people hire people like you to develop that story for a brand. In life, we're responsible. We almost have that job for to do for ourselves, right? We have to be our own CMO in a sense to develop our brand and do all of the things that you just mentioned. How much time, energy, and effort should we as people be spending on this?
Hmm. It should. There's this quote from a show called Futurama that I used to watch 10, 15 years ago. Do you remember that show?
I do. Yes, I do.
Yeah. It was Matt Groening, who was the creator of The Simpsons. It was kind of his second effort to put a show out in the world. And there's this episode that I remember watching with my own son 15 odd years ago. He was still in high school. And the line is, if you do things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all.
Ooh.
And I love that statement, right? Because it suggests that it shouldn't feel like work,
Yeah, I just
right?
got the chills
You
when you
shouldn't
said that.
feel like you're
Yeah.
having to try that hard, right, Michelle? And I say this to my students. I say, if it feels like you're trying too hard to be the person that you want others to think you are, you might want to think about trying something else because it shouldn't feel like a heavy lift, right? You want people who are going to accept you for who you are. And if you're showing up as your authentic self, the rest should kind of take care of itself. Um, and there are certainly resources and myself and others that you can talk to if that's not working for you. Um, but it shouldn't, even if you are spending time making friends, working on relationships, it shouldn't have to feel like you're doing work.
I
Does that
think
track?
that's it does. I think that's a really comforting mindset to be in when approaching this conversation. Because if someone's listening and they're thinking they've had this internal dialogue or they will after they finish this episode and they think, I don't know if I would like what someone says about me when I'm not in the room and I need to put in energy to change that. I think that's very
Yeah.
overwhelming. That notion is overwhelming that that needs to occur. But if the reframe could be, I don't like what someone may say about me when I'm not in the room. I know who I am. Let me just do more of that.
Mm.
I don't find that to be as overwhelming. And to your quote, that means you're just doing the right thing. So I'm so glad I asked you that question because that helps me reframe as well.
So one of the things that I try to do in my classroom is I try to shy away from long-winded definitions, right? As I hear, as I like say multiple sentences to you about how I feel about this subject. But even if I do take that approach, I say, how would we say this in fewer words? And ideally, how do we say it in just 3 words? Can
Ooh,
we condense this concept down to just 3 words? And everything that you and I have just spoken about in like the last 2 or 3 minutes, here's the 3 words. And technically, it's only two. You do you.
oh, I'm writing it down. You do you.
That's it. Like that's the ultimate expression of authenticity, isn't it?
It
Right?
is.
Of living your own authentic self, of being your own brand. You do you. Everybody else is already taken. So like you don't have much there's no choice but to just be you, right? So you do you. And I really do try to encourage my students, especially those who might be struggling, just keep doing you. That it's gonna work. You're gonna find that group with whom you vibe, resonate, whatever the right word is there. Just don't give up.
Yeah, and that brings I think a lot of my conversations always land back to self-awareness. Just be aware, figure out ways to learn more about yourself and then be that person. That's why I am so in love with higher education because I think it
Mm,
gives students the time and space to discover who they are. And outside of that environment, it's really difficult to find that time and space, especially as we evolve in life and all of the other responsibilities come into play. Not that some students don't have those responsibilities already, but traditionally it is a space where you can really lean in to figuring out who you are. And then when you do that, you do you.
mm, that's really well put. And I like that. The biggest adjustment for me 4 years ago coming to higher ed was sort of recognizing that these students were still unwritten to a
Yeah.
degree. I'd gotten so accustomed over 25 years of, corporate trainings and having these like really high level expectations of people who'd also been working for 10, 20, 30 odd years. And then just walking into a classroom of 18 to 20-year-olds, who weren't sure what exactly to expect from a college academic experience. I probably came in with a little bit too much gusto and bravado that I sometimes feel bad for that very first intro to marketing class. I gave them homework like the very first day. I had like, 25 assignments over 16 weeks. I'm like, what are you doing? Right? They're still like, they were just fresh off of COVID, like trying to figure out like getting back to in-person learning and just sort of recognizing that there's still like these open blank pages to a large degree, and
Yeah.
they're looking for as much from us, probably frankly more from us than we're expecting of them. It took me a couple of months to sort of work that out for myself. And so becoming more of that mentor, guide, uh, coach, so to speak, academically minded coach that I think we all need at that age. It took me a minute, but here I am, like 4 years out, and I'm with you, Michelle. I love that part of higher ed.
It is the best. I often describe myself as a sponge because as a young professional, I just try and soak in as many people and experiences as I possibly can. But that's how I view my
Yeah,
classroom. When I look out at the sea of young people in front of me, I just know that they are all little sponges. Like there are things that you'll say that they will absorb that may seem meaningless to you in the moment, but it could be one of those one-liners or that three-word summary to summarize some
right.
big theory that they will carry with them forever, and I just think that is so cool.
You're right. Cool is the right word for it. And really it's kind of the best we can hope for in what we
Yeah,
do. I mean, these kids, and I'll use the word kids, figuratively, really, right? They're not kids anymore. Um, are kids, right? They have so much going on in their lives that they're navigating, friendships, parents. A lot of them have part-time jobs, right? And for some of them, it's their first real shot at the responsibility required
yep,
of a part-time job. Friendships, sports, like, roommates, floor mates, all of that stuff. And, you know, not to heap too much expectation on them, but if they walk away from a given course, right? 16 weeks, 2.5 hours a week, right? Couple of exams, several take-home assignments. If they can remember two or three solid lessons, right, that they can then carry forward into the following semester, if a handful of lessons overall essentially survive the 4-year experience and inform some future decision, we've more than done like what we can possibly do for them. And that's
yeah,
the impact. That's why I got into higher ed, was my desire to make an impact on this younger generation, tomorrow's leaders. That's the dream, is to just have a handful of the lessons that we impart um, to have made a difference. And we may never even hear about it, right? Whereas the definition of faith is planting seeds in a garden that you'll never get to see
yep,
flourish.
mhm.
You just got to believe that it's going to happen. And um, I do believe, and that's comforting.
I do too. And I think all of those things, plus a little more confident, a little more self aware, a little more aligned. Maybe they've developed their personal brand. Like, just keep adding to that garden. And it is a really magical thing to be a part of. And I love your
Yeah.
passion
We're, lu-
around it.
we're lucky,
I could
really.
just tell that you have so much passion. And the fact that you can bring in that corporate experience into the classroom again, using it as a place to give back and serve, to your point, is it's really special for the students that have access to you.
I appreciate that. I hope that's true. I laugh at myself sometimes. I'm like, is there anybody else getting this excited about price elasticity of demand? Um, Sometimes I feel like I'm really overselling it, right? I'm talking about like, why do we pay whatever they charge us for gasoline? Because we got to get to work, we got to get to practice, we got to get home for break, right? You're just trying to sort of sell the concept, right, of inelasticity towards pricing. And then like I'll pause a minute and I'll be like, all right, maybe you should come down a little bit. Like you're getting a little carried away. But I feel like if we're not passionate about the things that we're trying to impart, why would they ever be, right?
Oh, for sure. I always say I'm up there with like jazz hands. One of my good friends, Paul Nardone, and I, we always say we could do cartwheels. We could be doing high kicks. Like it is, it is a
Right.
show, baby. Speaking of being an entertainer, and I think it should be because it is exciting to learn. But if we're not excited to share the information, then why would someone be excited to learn about it? I'm not. When someone's sharing
Yeah.
information with me and I could tell that they're not jazzed about it, I less likely to absorb.
Oh, totally. Yeah, yes, that's human nature, right? We're reflections of what's being put, in our direction. 100%.
Yeah. And again, someone else's personal, and that's goes back to personal branding, and then we'll tie a bow around that. And I have a few more questions for you. But I think
Okay.
the way that others are showing up, that's a reflection of their personal brand. And the more magnetic that they are, of course, then the more likely we want to spend time with them, which goes back to your original point. We only have so much time, energy, and effort. So who are we surrounding ourselves with
So
and
true.
why?
Yeah. Well put.
Okay, any other thoughts on personal branding before I ask you a few of my other more general questions?
No, I think hopefully, those who are listening or watching are getting a little bit out of our exchange in that regard.
I hope so too. You do you. That's gonna be my final statement on personal branding. I
You do
think those
you.
are
That's your brand, baby. Yeah.
that's your brand, baby. Okay, my questions for you. What are you most proud of, Matt? What are you most proud of?
Wow. You're like, these are interview questions. Um, what am I most proud of?
Yeah.
It sounds so trite, right? But like, um, I've got two adult kids. They're both in really strong, healthy relationships themselves.
Love it.
And I can't help but feel like as a parent that that's somehow a reflection of the teacher I was for them. So
Mm,
to see them thrive, to see them happy, because look, I spend more time with them sort of teaching and training and coaching than, you know, any 30 students at the university combined, right?
right.
So if I had to look back and say, what am I most proud of? I'm most proud when I see my own kids happy in their own lives. And right
Oh,
now, knock wood, they both seem pretty happy, and so I'm proud of that.
thanks for sharing that. That is wonderful. And it leads beautifully into my next question, which is so you mentioned that you were coaching as your children were figuring it out. What advice do you have for anyone that's listening right now that is just in this phase of trying to figure it all out, whatever it may be? What are things that you've learned or a piece of advice that you would give to someone else?
Again, I'd love to say something deeply profound, that doesn't sound a little bit cliche, but sometimes there's a reason that it becomes cliche. And
Of course.
I just, my counsel is usually make it smaller, right? Because a lot of times we have this tendency to take a challenge or take a struggle and make it so much bigger than it is to anybody else, right? We outsize it. And what that really only serves to do is make us small, right? So my
Mm,
advice is to kind of flip that script. Try to make the problem as small as possible. And that's not to suggest minimize the problem or the challenge. It's just more like break it up into as many small pieces as you can. Because most problems are really more like a puzzle than just
yeah.
one single question that needs an answer. I say, and start working on one small piece of that challenge. And when you tackle that, and if you need help tackling that, I'm here, or find friends who can help you with that, and then move on to the next piece. Um, make the so it really one I think repetition is key, right? If you're having a struggle, you're having a challenge, ask yourself, how can you make it smaller, not bigger? And the way to make it smaller is to break it down into its component parts and then start working on it one small piece at a time.
I really like that advice. And it reminds me, I oftentimes share to just get started. Just start. You have
Mm,
to start somewhere. And I think that's aligned
sure.
with your advice of making it smaller. And there's I love the Peloton, I talk about it often. There's a Peloton instructor that always says the hardest part is showing up. So when you step on your
Yeah.
treadmill in the morning, like you've already done the hardest part. And I think about that a lot through my day and when I'm working with students or whomever, that sometimes the hardest part is just literally pressing play. And then once you do that, you're golden, baby. Just keep going.
There's so much talk, and rightly so, about people who are in really dark places, and considering options that I wish that they wouldn't even come to mind. And one of the replies that I hear to people that are having those kinds of thoughts sounds like one more day, right?
Yeah.
Just give it one more day, and maybe even just give it one more minute or one more hour, right? Because and you reminded me of it with that whole notion of just showing up. You know, walk down if the Peloton's in the basement, just walk down the steps, right?
Yep.
Sit down on the bike. Don't even turn it on yet. Maybe just start pedaling a little bit, right? No pressure, nothing. You know, if you feel like stopping, okay, move on to do something else. So it's that whole notion of one step at a time. And I know it's a little cliche, I know it's a little bit trite, but it's all part of the same narrative about just getting started, just showing up, making it smaller. It's really I
Yeah.
think the best advice there is.
And to your point, those messages exist for a reason. Those taglines, if you want to put it in that perspective, we say
Sure.
them often because they work. There doesn't need to be some profound, long-winded something. It's just they stand the test of time.
Yeah. And we talk about mindfulness, right? And the simplest advice of all, because we're going to do it anyway, that I've ever heard is breathe in, breathe out, and like take stock of your own breathing. I mean, because literally when we're super stressed sometimes, I've literally caught myself forgetting to breathe,
Oh, of
right?
course. Mhm.
Where you really feel like you literally holding your own breath, right? And that's where the anxiety really comes in. We feel our own heartbeat, right? And so, does it get any simpler than that when we talk about breaking it down into the smallest possible steps than just breathe?
Exhale
Yeah,
and then do it
yeah,
again. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, next question for you. Book recommendations, podcast recommendations. What is Matt listening to? What are you reading? What do you recommend that everyone else should be as well?
Okay. Let's see. I'm listening to a couple of podcasts. Professor Scott Galloway is like a bit of a professional hero of mine. So he's got the Prof G pod that I listen to. It's a really good business and political pod. He participates in a couple of others. He's on one called Raging Moderates. He's on another one called Pivot. So I listen to that for fun, for sort of relaxation and decompression. I listen to a podcast called Pop Culture Preservation Society,
Oh, cool.
PCPS. It's really fun, especially if you grew up in the 80s like I did. You know, when they break down some of my favorite shows and the sitcoms and the movies and the clothes that we wore. So it's a really nice sort of nostalgia trip for me. So I love
Yeah.
to listen to that like when I'm working out or I'm walking outside. At Dominican, we've just started our own podcast channel called Dunify. It's
Yep.
just getting rolling. It's on Spotify. I'm listening to your podcast, honestly, the last couple of weeks. I love what you're doing here.
Thanks.
Um, Books are an escape for me. So I don't tend to read a lot of business books. I have, but I'll be honest, it's not necessarily my favorite read. I like an escape when I read. I recently read a book called All Our Wrong Todays,
Ooh,
and it's like it's futuristic fiction. It imagines what society could look like 100 years from now. It's written by a guy named Elon Mustai. Um,
okay.
there was a TV show called This Is Us that ran for several years on NBC. I think it just ended a couple years ago.
I think I watched a
He
few
was one of
seasons
the
of
principal
that.
writers
Mhm.
on that show. Yeah. But he wrote this book, All Our Wrong Todays, and I loved that. And then, you know what? You said book, so I can't help it. I just released my own book
I
called
was hoping
Surviving
that's
the
where we
Fire
were going
Swamp.
next. Wait,
Yeah, it's look,
say the name, say the title one more time.
Surviving the Fire Swamp. It's a collection of 33 essays inspired by the movie The Princess Bride, right? So I start at the beginning of the movie, I go all the way through to the end. I analyze 33 distinct moments in the film, and I bring it all back to life and leadership lessons. And so it's available
Nice.
now. I'll send you I think I've already sent you the link to it. Um, it's in press right now, so I'll have printed copies by the end of the month, and I'll ship those out. Great holiday gift for somebody that you know who loved that movie, The Princess Bride.
When did you start writing, Matt? Because I know I read the LinkedIn article that you put out, but I cannot tell you when it was published. I just found
Yeah.
it when I was exploring all things you. So when did you start? When did you know that you wanted to publish this? Is this your first publication, formal publication in this format?
My first publication of book length. Um, I've written some articles for Brand Week magazine
Cool.
in the past, so I've been published before, and some research articles, of course, from an academic
Yeah,
standpoint.
yeah.
This is my first book. 6 odd years ago, I wrote the essay that you must have found on LinkedIn, where I broke down the different leadership styles of
Yep.
the different
Mhm.
characters in that movie. Um, but as I was ruminating with it, because I was thinking there's so much more to explore in this film, which I've seen I'm maybe a little ashamed to say, probably 75, maybe 80 times.
Okay, in the article
Since it
6 years ago, I think you referenced that you saw it more than 50, so you must have even watched it.
Yeah, I've continued to watch it, absolutely, right? It might even be 100 at this point, but that's okay. I mean, it's m the source material for this book that I've just published,
For
right?
sure. Market
Um,
research. You were doing your market research, Matt.
yeah, exactly. And it took me from the time I took a sort of a chapter approach to it, 4 years, start to finish.
Oh,
'Cause it was
wow.
mostly like a Saturday afternoon here, a Tuesday on vacation at the beach there, on the I
Yeah.
tapping away at the iPad, right? Checking a clip on YouTube to make sure I got the quote right. Like that whole process. Yeah, about 4 years to write the 33 essays.
Oh, well, congratulations. I cannot wait to
Thank
read.
you.
As I mentioned, I have to watch Princess Bride first. It feels right in a
Yep.
line. So that's going to be my evening tonight with a glass of wine. And then I
Please tell
immediately
me
am
what
going
you
to
think. I'm anxious for your review of the movie.
Oh, I'll send you a message first thing tomorrow morning if that's okay. I'll let you know immediately what
Yeah,
I think.
for sure.
I and then of course, I would love a signed copy of your book and I cannot wait to support you. So I'm so happy that I was
You
able to
got it.
have you on the show right after that really great accomplishment.
I appreciate you. Give me a chance to talk about it for a minute.
Of course. And then, okay, two final speed round questions. Ripple effect, the
Okay.
orange butterfly effect. Of course, I love to talk about the ripple effect that we have in the world. So, what's one thing you've done or seen that you feel like has had a ripple effect in your world or the world around us?
Um, so easy, quickest response is deciding finally that I didn't want to stay in corporate America and I wanted to bring those skills into, not even so much skills, to like bring my knowledge,
Yeah.
bring what I had to offer back to the next generation by switching from corporate America to higher ed. And again, I don't have a ton of evidence of the ripples. I just believe in my brain and in my heart that it's happening, and so that's probably, I believe, it will be ultimately the largest ripple that I create in my time
Mm.
here on Earth.
Oh, yeah, the garden's growing. I love that you mentioned that earlier in the show. It definitely is. And then my last question to keep us present, what is one thing that brought you joy today on this Friday? Just one thing in reflection.
So I woke up, it's finally fall, right? It
I
was like 38 degrees this morning here in the lower Hudson Valley of New York. And I got to put on a sweatshirt for the first time and my track pants and do a
love it.
walk outside with the AirPods in and feel like I was just enjoying this fall weather. I cannot tell you how joyful it was to go for a morning walk outside and feel the crispness of that morning fall air.
Yeah, that I had a similar experience this morning. I live for this time of year. It is my absolute favorite. And I'm sure where you are in New York, beautiful views right now.
Yeah, the leaves are really, yeah, not full yet, but we're really getting there. I mean, it was
Yeah.
87 degrees on Monday afternoon, and I was like, what the heck? Right? And then this morning, it was like fall finally answered back and is joyful.
Oh, I am so happy to hear that. Thanks for sharing that. That brought me joy just envisioning you having that experience.
Yeah.
Is there anything, Matt, that we didn't cover that you want to share before I close us out for today?
I loved this. I think we covered a lot of great ground, and I really appreciated the chance to be with you. I know, we met in, wasn't it Indiana,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, at the IATBE conference.
Yep,
And
that's where
so
we
it's
met. I
been
went to
some
your
months. And
session. Yeah, you had me doing. I was
yeah,
what?
right,
Which one?
exactly. We taught you how to play
Magic
pitch, hit, or
Michelle.
ditch.
That was my improv too. You made me. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right, I played
Improv,
improv with you and uh, taught you guys how to play pitch, hitch, or ditch, which you
which
then
we
brought forward
love.
into your classes. That's right. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you again and to commiserate and discuss, what it is that we're doing, what we're bringing, how we're showing up, our authentic brand, and hopefully
Yeah.
making a difference in the lives of others.
Matt, I appreciate your time so much. And I had this experience the first time that we were together. And I follow you closely on socials. You are just so fun. Thanks for being fun. I think it's really hard to be fun. And I think that you are extra fun. So I thank you for bringing that energy. It's really, really, really refreshing.
It's my pleasure, right? And really enjoyed my time with you. And I hope you have some fun this weekend, starting with that movie viewing tonight.
I'm going to. I'm going to watch that movie, give you a review tomorrow. And for everyone listening, I hope that you find one thing that brings you joy today. Thank you so much, Matt.